So, I've been away for a while on this channel, and the reasons for that was, or is, because I've been working on other creative projects. But I really feel I have to make this video because what I'm about to talk about is important, especially for those that are or have been initiating into shamanic practices, or just spiritual orientated people in general. And it's about the communication with spirits. Now, I communicate with spirits on a daily basis. Many different varieties of spirits. Some are in the physical, some are in the non-physical. But these spirits, each one of them, has their own agendas, just like every individual does. So, you've got to be careful, because these spirits, these entities, have a way of manipulating. And if you're not a sovereign individual, you can be very, very easily manipulated into their own agendas. And I've fallen into this in the past, but I managed to get out of it. And there's even times, around the time we're in now, that still happens, except I have a stronger psychic defense. Now, this all ties into the mental illness of, well, it's not actually really a mental illness, but it's been characterized as one by the mental health establishment, and it's called schizophrenia. Now, what schizophrenia is people who are under the possession of spirits, non-physical spirits. The reason why they are schizophrenic is because they have not been initiated into the shamanic teachings. So they do not know how to deal with the voices that are inside their head or aren't theirs. This is spirit possession. Now, the psychiatry establishment does not know a thing about this. The psychiatry establishment, for the last 200 years, has come from a very Freudian school of thinking, which is the belief that there is no spiritual dimension to reality, and that this is all just in your head, or just complexities of the brain. Now, schizophrenics do not know, most of them probably do not know a thing about this. Do not know a thing, that they do not know that their spirit's talking to them. They just think it's certain voices inside their head they cannot control, which are partially theirs or are repressed voices from their own psyche, basically. But what you've got to understand, the psyche is not purely individual, because there's a collective unconscious. Of course, there is an individual aspect of the psyche, but the collective unconscious, it has such a variety of archetypal themes and encompasses all entities in this reality and even in other realities beyond this one. Now, when dealing with spirits, for example, you wouldn't go, if a stranger met you one day, would you instantly trust them? Even if they're very friendly? No, you wouldn't, would you? Because you don't even know them, you don't know anything about them. They could just be acting friendly in order to manipulate you. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk to them very civilly, or you should be polite to them. But you wouldn't trust them instantly, would you? Well, that's the same with spirits. You don't go and just trust these non-physical spirits and every word they say, even if they're presenting it very nicely. And to be honest, if they are presenting something very nicely, very, to you, I'll be quite suspicious, to be honest, because they could be using that. The best manipulators usually speak to you in a very nice and cushy kind of way in order to manipulate you in. This is the same that applies. Certain voices that come into your head that you know aren't yours, aren't actually yours. And these spirits, for actually, even quite recently, have been trying to manipulate me to their own agendas. And they're even very convincing. That you actually do agree with a lot of things they say. But when I come out of the conversation of them, I've really got to reflect on what they have actually said. So, getting back to schizophrenia. Schizophrenics will tell you that there are these voices inside their head, like I've just gone over. And people just put them on fucking drugs and say they should just be ignored. And so they don't get healed, they don't get cured of this manipulation that they're up against. And then you also got exorcists who can get rid of spirits. A lot of these exorcists come from the Christian religion, which really is, yes, it will get rid of these spirits, but it's just going to put you back into a certain mindset that is going to make you be completely controlled by the emotion of fear. Because that's what Christianity is. It's a metaphysical virus of fear and victim mentality cast upon the world. And it's nearly infected every single corner of the globe today. And to be honest, when you're in that religion, you are a slave to some of the worst spirits out there. Because, for example, the whatever entity it is that is taking on the role of the Christian God, and I'm not talking about Jesus Christ. I'm talking about the one they call Jehovah. If there is a worst demon out there, he is the worst of them all. And I don't want to go into him too much now because I don't want to really evoke him. So, what has been my experience of these spirits very recently? Well, they've kind of been trying to convince me that there's a place for me within the so-called elite hierarchy. And that I should join this elite hierarchy and try to, well, take the advantage of my irritation with the so-called quote-unquote masses, the general public, basically, who do not understand a fucking word that I say about any of this I speak about on this channel, and say that you're better than them. You're more wise than them. You should be one of the rulers over them. These are the genuine words they say to me. Well, not all of them, but, you know, these ones that are trying to be communicating with me very recently, the more manipulative ones, because there's obviously spirits of lower, higher intelligence, you know, all around. Some spirits are particularly harmless. They're like basically like children. They're not having anything to worry about. They don't have the intelligence enough to be able to manipulate a human being on this planet. But there are ones what can. And I've even been very, very, you know, have thought about it and really at times considered their offer. But I cannot go down that road. And believe me, it's not easy. I have to resist every single fucking day. I have to resist every single fucking day. And I have had thoughts about, you know, how our shamans of the world, how are we going to heal the planet that we live on, all the life forms on it? You know, what's the solutions? Should we try to, you know, maybe form some sort of, you know, global governance? Not in a dictatorial sort of way, but a kind of round table, wise elder council model, where none of us is the dictator, but we're all of a round table. That form of governance. Or should we try and open up educational institutions and over generations and generations educate humanity until they're on that level where they can take initiative for themselves because I don't think the concept of anarchy, and don't mean that in the ridiculous way some political group today like Antifa thinks of it, where it's just chaos, cause as much chaos as possible, and be just an antisocial cunt. I'm talking about the way that in the sense of no rulers, not no rules, no rulers, and a way of understanding natural law. But I don't think humanity, on the condition on a mass level that they're in now, is ready for that yet. And we need to start thinking of solutions that can eventually, gradually over time, allow that to happen. Because we're at a time now where humanity is going through a very dark time, but could get out of it. And sometimes I do really kind of see, is there any hope for humanity? Is it going to be like this forever? And I'm sometimes lost for solutions. And it kind of does, kind of depress me when I do think about this, because sometimes I don't, maybe there isn't going to be a mass awakening, but then us shamans of the world, and even spiritually orientated people of the world, and just anyone who's somewhere awake, what are they going to do if the masses just carry on? Well, I don't really like to use that term, masses, but the general just populace or public carries on just being the way that they are and have been for a very, very long time. What kind of, how would we interact with the world and society? Are we just going to become like invisible almost? Because sometimes, to be honest, I feel like I'm fucking invisible on this world. Not that many people I can relate to these days, and it does make you think that am I just going crazy, or is this like? But then I can be extremely down to earth, so I know that's not me just being, crazy. So, and I see people who are considered by society's norms to be the most ordinary people, but then they have more psychological baggage than I do. So I'm really kind of in a place right now where I'm wondering, where does it go from here? I don't know, the type of people who watch my channel are people who could probably relate to what I'm saying right now. I think a very good way of actually dealing with what we're going through right now is to express it through an art form. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. That's why I've been away from this channel for a while. Well, not only a couple of months, but to work on creative projects and stuff, like I said in the start of this video. And it does actually activate a connection, even a stronger, more connection with the creative essence, or the source, or whatever you want to call it, the divine, and also to the feminine counterpart to that, which is nature herself. And it brings out this spark in you. But these creative endeavors do take quite long to manifest, because I want to make my creations of the highest quality possible, and it takes a long time to do that. But then there's also the question of, will my creative projects, how far will they reach? Like, will it be seen by more or less people than I want it to? And I think at the moment that is probably the best solution to initiate right now, is the working on your creative projects, whatever art form they are in, and trying to manifest them in the most purest way that you can. Because also there's the long-term solutions, which we have to look far ahead in the future for, which will be how can we teach the teachings that we have to humanity in general, which at the moment I don't have all the answers for. And it's also, how do we even engage, like, the average person about this? Going up to them and talking to them on the streets like an activist, I don't know if that's even going to be able to work. Because to understand what we are teaching takes a long, long time. And having a quick conversation with someone, in our daily lives, yes, that can spark things off for some people, but then there's going to be the people who just simply aren't interested. And, so should we try and save everyone, or only a few people, or what? These are the answers I've been looking for, and it's very frustrating sometimes to not have the answers for all these things, because I don't. I mean, I could go on with talking about other things, and I will in future videos, but for now, this is all I've got to say, and I'll talk to you next time.